The series begins with a handsome young man named John. We learn that he used to live in the US and has just returned to Korea, literally just now. His uncle picks him up from the airport and takes him to the house where he'll be staying. He asks John to settle down in Korea and stop traveling all the time, saying, "Come on, I'm tired of picking you up from the airport every other week." But John refuses, saying he needs to finish his work quickly because he plans to return to America. His uncle replies, "Do whatever you want. By the way, don't you want to meet any of your old friends?" John answers, "I don't really have friends, just one girl. I miss her." Then we meet our heroine, Sha. She's a beautiful, delicate, and shy girl with a bit of bad luck. Her friend has set her up on a blind date with a colleague, hoping she'll get to know him and maybe even get married. Sha arrives at the restaurant, which happens to be the same place where John is sitting. When she sees him, she mistakes him for her blind date, goes over to his table, and sits with him. She's impressed by his looks and tries to get to know him, asking for his name. John surprises her by introducing himself, but suddenly, John's actual date shows up, and Sha feels really embarrassed when she realizes she's been sitting with the wrong person. She tells the girl it was just a misunderstanding, explains the situation, apologizes, and leaves to go sit with the guy she was originally supposed to meet for the first time. John sits with his date, and although she starts talking to him, he's completely distracted. He keeps staring at Sha. It's obvious he's interested in her. His date notices the way he's looking at Sha and asks if he knows her. He replies, "Oh, she was a classmate from school." He feels a little down because she clearly doesn't remember him at all. He decides to go after her to remind her who he is, but when he leaves the restaurant, he can't find her. He's disappointed she left before he had a chance to talk to her. Meanwhile, Sha has gotten into a car with the guy she was supposed to meet, but as they drive, she keeps glancing at John through the rearview mirror. The guy tries to invite her to dinner, but his way of speaking is very robotic, which makes her feel uncomfortable. She makes an excuse and says she's busy. At the same time, John also makes an excuse to leave his date and drives off, thinking about Sha the entire way. Then suddenly, surprise, he spots her waiting at a bus stop. He can't believe his eyes and thinks he's imagining things. We're taken into a flashback from their school days. Back then, Sha once asked to speak to him and gave him a letter where she confessed her feelings. She asked him to give her an answer, but when the other students started teasing them, John felt embarrassed and never even opened the letter. Back to the present. John is determined not to make the same mistake again. He wants to confess his feelings and remind her who he is, but just as he's about to approach her, her bus arrives. She gets on and leaves. Still, he doesn't give up. He follows the bus, but he loses track of her and feels frustrated and disappointed. Then, by pure coincidence, he sees her again, this time eating at a street food cart. He says to himself, "What are the chances? You've appeared again like luck itself. This time I won't let you slip away." And he decides to take advantage of the opportunity. John walks over to her and orders the exact same food she did. Sha is surprised and says, "What, you're here too?" He tries to start a conversation and remind her who he is, but she suddenly says, "You haven't changed at all. You still look exactly the same." Then she asks for his number, saying she wants to invite him to a gathering with their old school friends. But John tells her, "I didn't come here to see my old friends. I came to ask you one question. Do you still have feelings for me like you did back then?" She's caught off guard and says, "What? What are you talking about?" Just as her food falls onto him. She gets flustered and embarrassed, then pays for his food to apologize and leaves quickly. John is left confused, unsure whether she's happy or upset. Later, he goes back home and spends the entire night staring at his phone, hoping she'll call, but nothing. He starts losing hope. Then we're taken into another flashback, to the first time they met. At that time, John had a broken leg and had taken the bus to school. Just before getting off, he noticed a girl, Sha, asleep in her seat. The driver said, "Hey, wake up that girl sleeping back there and help her off the bus." John had no choice but to do it. When he got close to her, he was struck by her beauty, but he was shy and awkward. To wake her up, he pretended to steal her bag. Of course, she woke up in shock, thinking it was real, and thanked him for waking her. She got off the bus, but was surprised to find the teacher punishing late students. To avoid trouble, she made up a story and said she was helping John because of his broken leg, and that he was the reason she was late. She said, "What can I do, sir? I'm too kind-hearted. I just can't ignore someone in need. That's how I was raised." John stood there speechless and didn't even try to deny her claim. He just said, "I swear, it's the first time I've ever seen her." The teacher realized she was lying and punished her along with the rest of the late students. From that day on, Shaw felt irritated by John and began to plot a little revenge. But John just laughs at what she did and heads to class. Once inside, he discovers that she secretly slipped one of her sketchbooks into his bag without him noticing. When he opens it, he's surprised to find a drawing inside. But just then, the teacher catches him daydreaming and assumes he's not paying attention. To embarrass him, the teacher calls on him to solve a difficult math problem, thinking John won't be able to do it. But guess what? He's no ordinary student. He's one of the top brains in the school. John easily solves the problem and even challenges the teacher, saying, "If you have another one, give it to me. I'll solve it too." The teacher feels embarrassed but tries to play it off, acting like John's intelligence is all thanks to his own teaching. He says, "Well, that's what happens when you have me as your teacher. Applaud me, kids, and give me a round of applause." So everyone claps. John then glances out the window and sees Shaw sitting in the garden, sketching. He keeps watching her, totally captivated. When she notices him, she waves and smiles. He's mesmerized by her beauty and feels like his heart just skipped 3 beats. Back to the present. John is lost in all these sweet memories, still hoping Shaw will call him. Meanwhile, Shaw is chilling, happily munching on snacks and calling her best friend to tell her what happened. Her friend is shocked, like, "What? All that happened and you didn't tell me? John came back from America? Oh my God, so many things happened." Then she asks, "Wait, is he dating someone or planning to? What's his deal?" Shaw answers, "Honestly, I don't know anything about him. I only saw him once and got his number." They remember a flashback from their school days. And here comes the twist, dear viewer. It turns out that it was actually Shaw's best friend who had a crush on John back then. She asked Shaw to deliver the letter and confess her feelings for her. Oh dear, our poor John is in for a surprise. All this time, he thought Shaw was the one who liked him, but he's about to realize he got the wrong girl. Anyway, back to the past. Shaw's friend was shocked when she saw John again because he was the same guy who refused to help her once and reported her to the teacher. Still, for the sake of her friend, she decided to forgive him and even help her confess her feelings. She advised her to write him a letter telling him she liked him, but her friend was too shy and couldn't do it. So Shaw took the letter and gave it to John herself. But unfortunately, some students saw them together and assumed they were a couple. Now, back to the present again. Dear viewer, Shaw feels embarrassed by those old memories and thinks it was all just childish drama. But her friend is still into John and asks Shaw to help her get closer to him again. She even suggests that Shaw find herself a good-looking guy too and start dating. You can't stay single forever. But Shaw replies, "Listen, everyone should mind their own business. You go ahead with your love life and romance, and leave me with my food. That's my taste." And she keeps eating until her stomach starts hurting. The next day, John goes to attend a meeting at the company, where he's introduced to the other employees. They find it strange that he's quiet, but suddenly he speaks up and points out a mistake they've made in their work. Everyone is shocked and impressed by his intelligence, especially that he noticed it from just a quick glance. This guy isn't ordinary. He's talented in things we don't even understand. We need to focus and learn from him. But John just leaves and heads to his office. His co-worker is surprised by his behavior and assumes he's arrogant, so he follows him. When he finds John sitting there, lost in thought and staring at his phone, he asks, "Hey man, who are you waiting for? Who do you think is going to message you?" That's when we find out John is still thinking about Shaw. He's been waiting for her to call ever since she took his number, but sadly, she's completely forgotten. She doesn't even remember that she has his number. Suddenly, a call comes in from an unknown number. John lights up, thinking, finally, she remembered me. How are you? I missed you. But surprise, it's actually her friend. She tells him she got his number from Shaw and that she wants to organize a welcome party for him. At first, John refuses, not interested, but when he hears that Shaw will be attending the party, he immediately changes his mind. Of course I'll come. That night, he gets ready, dressing up in his best suit. His roommate asks if he's going on a blind date or something, but John brushes it off and says, "Nah, it's not like that," refusing to explain and heading out. He arrives at the venue where he's supposed to meet his old classmates. Shaw's friend is already there, waiting excitedly. When John walks in like a proper gentleman, She's stunned by how handsome he looks and greets him warmly. But John doesn't even recognize her. He looks around and asks, "Where's Shah?" And that's when he learns she hasn't arrived yet. So John is forced to sit with Shah's friend while waiting for Shah to arrive. She keeps talking about herself nonstop, telling him she works at a school, is a great housewife, and would be perfect for marriage, and even moving with him to America if he wanted. But John isn't listening at all. He's upset, thinking Shah isn't coming, and assumes she changed her mind and left. Suddenly, she walks in, but she's in a total mess. She's been drinking juice, with something in it clearly, and she's not in her right mind. She starts mumbling nonsense, saying all kinds of weird things that no one can understand, until she blurts out, "I saw my first love today, John." John is shocked. Finally, she's talking about me. Is she going to confess in front of everyone? No, I can't let this happen here. So he quickly takes her aside to walk her home and confirm if she really meant him. On the way, he tries to talk to her, but she brings up the first day they met, when he reported her to the teacher, and tells him she hated him for that. John laughs at her honesty and apologizes sincerely. Then he suggests they start over and turn the page. Shah agrees, shakes his hand, and casually mentions that she's actually his neighbor. She lives in the apartment, right above his. John is stunned. Seriously? Wow, what amazing luck! He keeps looking at her, feeling strong emotions. He remembers all the times he used to secretly care for her without her even realizing it. It becomes clear now, she was his first love all along, not the other way around, dear viewer. He wants to get closer to her and finally confess his real feelings. But, alas. The next morning, Shah wakes up with a splitting headache, completely forgetting everything that happened the night before. She tries to remember what she did, and bit by bit, it comes back. She met a guy named Young, her ex, and had started drinking to forget him. Then she showed up at the party, ran into John, and ended up rambling in front of him. She feels deeply embarrassed about it all, but recalls that he walked her home afterward. Then the doorbell rings. She panics, thinking it's John coming to confront her or get revenge, but when she opens the door, surprise! It's just her best friend standing there, waiting. Shah peeks through the door and breathes a sigh of relief when she sees it's just her friend. She lets her in and they sit down to have breakfast together. Her friend starts scolding her for what happened at the party and asks, "Why did you arrive so late, and what was that scene when you walked in?" Shah replies, Don't even get me started. I ran into that guy, Young, my first love. I tried to talk to him, fix things between us, but I was being too cold. I totally ignored him. Then he left. And I just got upset and kept drinking and drinking until I blacked out and ended up at the party." Her friend reacts dramatically and then begs Shah to help her get closer to John, saying, "You're hopeless with romance, so maybe I should be the one to get with him." That reminds Shah of a flashback from school. She remembers how she had tried multiple times to give John notes to let him know that her friend liked him, but he ignored them every time. Back then, she thought he was arrogant and full of himself, but the truth was, John had feelings for her, not for her friend. She just never realized it. She remembers the time she wrote a message on the classroom board trying to be direct, but John got embarrassed and erased it the moment he saw it. That was when she gave up and assumed he didn't care. Back to the present, dear viewer. Shah is now determined not to give up again. She promises her friend that she'll help her get closer to John and give it another try. Meanwhile, John is having breakfast with his uncle. He asks him if he knows the girl living in the apartment above them and suggests that maybe he could talk to her and invite her to show him around. After all, he just came back from the US and doesn't know many places in Korea. His uncle raises an eyebrow and says, "What kind of weird request is that? Asking a girl to take you out? Don't tell me you're hitting on her already, but fine, I'll help you out." So, the uncle calls Shah and asks if she's free the next day, and then sends her a picture of John as a child, asking her to go out with his nephew. She gets excited when she sees him and remembers that he's still just a kid, so she agrees and even invites her friend to come along, but the friend refuses. The next day, the time for the outing comes, and John wakes up feeling excited because he's finally going out with the girl he likes. He starts getting ready and puts on his best outfit. Our guy is looking like a true gentleman, folks. He hears the doorbell and realizes it's Shia, so he goes to open the door for her. But she freaks out when she sees him and asks what he's doing there. He tells her that he lives with his uncle. She looks at a picture of him as a kid and can't believe he's the same person now that he's grown up. She says, "How?" He asks, "What do you mean, how?" She replies, "How is everything happening like this? How are you the same person? And how am I supposed to take you around and show you Korea?" "No, you know what? I'm leaving. Goodbye." He says, "Wait, where are you going? You promised my uncle you'd take me out." She gets frustrated and tries to call her friend because she's afraid she'll get mad at her, but her friend doesn't answer. Then John hands her the car keys and says, "Come on, let's go. I won't drive. You know the way. I want you to take me anywhere you feel like. The important thing is, I'm going with you." He keeps looking at her happily because he's finally out with her, while Shia feels awkward under his gaze and thinks, "Is he going to kidnap me or what?" She takes him to an amusement park, and they start trying all the rides and spend a fun time together. They take photos to keep as memories. They both enjoy the outing and feel like they match well together. After that, she takes him to do her favorite activity, eating. She orders spicy food and challenges him to eat it. John accepts the challenge. They agree that whoever wins gets to have a wish granted. She says, "You've crossed paths with me now, and I won't just let you go. I'm going to destroy you." Then they start eating. But our boy isn't used to Korean food, and from the very first bite, he feels like there's fire in his mouth. As the saying goes, too much spice brings disaster. He says to her, "Please, I beg you, give me a sip of water." But she refuses and says, "This is a challenge and a competition. Keep going." She moves the bottle away from him, and he's forced to admit defeat. He loses, and she gets super excited because she won. Then she puts on a costume and tells him, "Today, you're my servant." She makes him follow her around and asks him to treat her like a princess. She has him take pictures of her everywhere she goes. John has no choice but to go along with it, and he's amazed by her beauty and her fun personality. He keeps staring at her, hearts practically coming out of his eyes because he's so into her. And honestly, I'm into her. You, dear viewer, are into her. Even you, dear female viewer, I know you're secretly into him too. I mean, how charming can one person be? But then she gets annoyed because he's not taking the photos exactly the way she wants. At this point, I need to say something, dear viewer. Yes. She was touched by his kindness and thanked him before heading inside. Later, as she lay in bed, she kept thinking about what had happened between them. She was confused by how fast her heart was beating. Wait, am I falling in love or what? Later that night, they decide to go for a walk, but suddenly it starts raining. They're forced to jump into the car until the rain stops. June sees it as a golden chance to confess his feelings to her, but our silly girl doesn't give him the opportunity and ruins the romantic moment by acting like a child, playing with all the buttons in his car. She accidentally opens the window and boom, the rain pours inside, ruining everything they were trying to avoid. June moves closer to her to close the window, and of course that closeness brings some awkward tension. She gets flustered and tells him, "Hey, that's inappropriate. Take me home now. It's late and I can't stay out any longer." She stays embarrassed and all confused during the whole ride back. Once they arrive, she jumps out of the car and runs toward the house. But June, worried she might get drenched, follows her, puts his hand on her shoulder to shield her, and gives her his umbrella. She's genuinely touched by the gesture and thanks him before heading inside. As she lies in bed, she keeps remembering everything that happened between them. Her heart is racing and she starts wondering, am I falling in love? She remembered a flashback from school. All the times she had tried to get a letter to him through her friend, but he always refused to take it. Back then she got angry and thought he was arrogant. She even told him she could never fall for someone like him. What she didn't know was that the reason he kept refusing the letter was because he actually liked her, and he didn't want to hurt her friend's feelings. He had been focused on her all along, and every time he saw her, his feelings grew stronger. One time, he saw her sleeping in the library, her head nearly falling onto a pile of books. He caught her just in time before she hit her head. He gently held her up so she wouldn't be disturbed. Next to her was a paper she had been working on for the teacher. He decided to help her out and spent the whole night finishing it while watching over her. When she woke up, she thought she had lost the paper, but he had already submitted it in her place. And with that, we return to the present. The next day, Shia wakes up and heads to work. When she arrives, the manager at the library calls her in and introduces her to a new employee who will be working with her. But things take a turn. Flashback to 3 years ago when he suddenly broke up with her to travel abroad. She had gone after him to the airport and begged him to stay with her, but he ignored her and left without saying a word. Back to the present. Young, the new employee, is happy that they'll be working together, but she is clearly upset with him. Later, she goes to him and asks to talk privately. She says, "Look, Focus, I've forgotten you, and I don't think about you anymore. Whatever's between us now is just work, and I don't want anyone knowing we were ever in a relationship. It's in the past." But he tells her the real reason he left wasn't to break up with her. He says he traveled to build himself up and become someone who could be ready to marry her. He shows her all the messages she had sent him over the years and tells her, "I never forgot you. I always thought about you." She's clearly moved by the fact that he kept everything and still cares. Meanwhile, John decides to postpone his trip for another 2 weeks. His uncle is surprised by his decision and asks if there's a specific reason, but John doesn't admit that Shia is the reason. Suddenly, John sees her sitting with Young and asks his uncle about him. His uncle says, "Oh yes, son, that young man is very respectable. He was her ex." But when John finds out that this guy left her and traveled without even saying goodbye, he gets angry and says, "Didn't you just say he was respectable?" His uncle replies, "Yeah, he's respectable as a person, but a jerk for leaving her like that." John then watches as Shia tries to leave, but Young follows her and asks, "Do you still love me?" That's when John jumps in to rescue her. He grabs her hand and pretends to be her new boyfriend, saying, "You forgot your phone in my car." He takes her and walks off with her. They stay hidden until Young finally leaves. Shia is happy and thanks John for being there for her. John can't believe it. He's over the moon and keeps holding her hand. She says, "Thank you, but I have to get back to work now," and gently pulls her hand away, walking off shyly and clearly embarrassed. When she returns to the company, she finds the manager waiting for her. Turns out the manager already knows about her past with Young, that he used to be her ex. Shia asks if someone else can be assigned to work with him, but the manager refuses and insists that he will be her partner from now on. Meanwhile, we see Young sitting in his car, calling his friend and bragging about what just happened. He says, "Bro, I saw Shia today. I'm telling you, she was crazy in love with me. I'm sure, like 1,000,000% sure, she still loves me. She's definitely going to agree to work with me again. We all know the truth." At the same time, John is thinking about what happened with Shia. He looks at his hand and smiles like he swore he'd never wash it again, folks. But then he remembers what his uncle told him, that Young was her first love, and he starts worrying that she might go back to him. Flashback. John is back in his school days, on his way home, when suddenly a bag is thrown in front of him. Shia jumps down from over the school wall. He realizes she was sneaking out of school. He grabs her bag and refuses to give it back. She's forced to lie and say she's feeling unwell and asks him not to tell anyone he saw her. She walks off, but he's suspicious. He decides to follow her, gets on the bus behind her without her noticing, and watches her looking excited and holding a gift. He figures out she's going to meet someone and becomes determined to find out who. But she spots him when she gets off the bus and asks, "Why are you following me?" She tells him to go back and leave her alone, but he's worried about her and insists on staying close. Eventually, he finds out she's going to a military training camp to visit Young, who's doing his service. He watches her fix her hair and try to look her best, and realizes she has feelings for Young and came to confess to him. John feels disappointed, crushed even, that she never noticed how he felt about her. Back to the present. John's uncle is shocked when he finds out that Shia is John's first love. He immediately figures out that John postponed his trip to America because of her. He starts yelling at John, worried about his future. He says, "Work is more important. We can't waste our time on things like this. You two aren't even right for each other." He tells him to focus on what's best for him. John feels torn and doesn't know what to do. He loves Shia and can't forget about her, but at the same time, he's afraid she might still love Young. He throws himself into work, staying late every day just to keep his mind off her. One night, he goes to his uncle and tells him that he got a promotion at work. His uncle is surprised and happy for him, but also realizes that John no longer cares about succeeding at work. All he really wants is to confess his feelings to the girl he loves. John leaves the office and starts walking home to clear his mind and improve his mood. By chance, Shia sees him while she's on her way home. She wants to call out to him, but remembers what happened that morning and feels embarrassed, so she tries to take another route. But John senses her and turns around. She pretends like she hadn't noticed him and walks up to say hi. She thanks him for helping her that morning and, to show her appreciation, invites him to dinner. John is thrilled. He thinks this is finally his chance to get closer to her. But, as we all know, things never go perfectly. He's surprised when she shows up with her friend, and then leaves them alone together to give them a chance to talk. John keeps glancing over at Shia, and her friend notices the way he looks at her. She reacts with surprise when she learns what happened between them earlier that day. She asks him directly if he likes Shia, and he's forced to confess. He says, "I've loved her since our school days," and apologizes for hiding it. Her friend gets a bit upset by his words, but also realizes that Shia doesn't know anything about his true feelings. She's surprised at how many coincidences have happened lately, how John randomly ran into Shia again after all these years. It also turns out that John lives near Shia, which makes her friend feel like fate is trying to bring them together. So she says, "I'm going to play matchmaker. I have to help you two end up together." But then she adds, "Right now I just need to drink and forget what just happened to me." She also tells John that his mission won't be easy, because Shia would never get involved with a guy her friend used to have a crush on. At that moment, Shia isn't upset because she left John alone with her friend. She's upset because she left the food, nothing else. So she heads to a restaurant owned by one of their mutual friends and starts eating everything in sight. Green, dry, cooked, raw, you name it. She vents to him saying, "Young is working with me now at the company." Yeah, that Young, my first love, the jerk who abandoned me. Her friend warns her about him and says, "Don't go back to him again. He left you once and he's fully capable of doing it again. I don't want to say it, but I saw what you went through because of him and how much you suffered." She's deeply affected by his words and starts drinking to forget it all. When she gets home, she notices that John still hasn't returned, so she gets a little worried and thinks about calling him. But then remembers he's probably still with her friend, so she decides to leave them alone and goes to bed. The next day, she wakes up excited for work. She meets with the manager and tells her, "I'm okay with working with Young now because I'm sure I don't have feelings for him anymore." Meanwhile, John is packing his things and preparing to go to America after giving up on the idea of being with Shia. He's heartbroken about leaving without even saying goodbye to her. On his way, he remembers a flashback from the day Shia went to the military camp. That day, she had gone there to see Young, only to discover he had lied to her and wasn't even there. She ended up sitting there all alone, heartbroken. So John stayed with her the whole time so she wouldn't be alone. John took her out to a restaurant to try and cheer her up, but she couldn't hold it in. She started crying. Even so, she kept eating anyway. John tried to comfort her or take the food away from her, but she told him to leave her alone and let her eat in peace. She asked him to just go because she wanted to look for Young and find out where he was so she could confess her feelings. But John wasn't the type to just leave, so he stayed with her so she wouldn't be alone. He took her to the guard and asked if he could tell them where Young was. They found out that Young was stationed at a remote military camp up in the mountains. No one was allowed to visit him. It was nearly impossible. Shia got really upset and discouraged, so John decided to take her back. They started walking because the distance to the main road was long, and suddenly the last bus passed right by them. They ran to catch it, but Shia tripped and fell to the ground. She told John to leave her and catch the bus, but we all know our guy's no coward. John refused to leave her. He didn't get on the bus and decided to stay with her, even if it meant sleeping outside. Back to the present. John gets a phone call from Shia's friend telling him that Shia has been in an accident and is in the hospital. He's shocked by what he hears and immediately cancels his travel plans to go see her. When he arrives, he finds her unconscious and with injuries on her legs. He stays by her side, holding her hand to reassure her. When she wakes up, she finds him next to her and asks why he didn't travel. He puts her hand on his chest so she can feel his heartbeat and says, "This is the reason." Of course, our girl doesn't quite get what he means. Her story is always leave it to fate. She's confused. But just as the moment is getting romantic, the doctor walks in and ruins it. She takes Shia for a checkup. Meanwhile, Shia's best friend is worried about her and asks her boss for permission to visit her at the hospital. When he hears what happened, he agrees and gives her time off, and even asks a colleague to drive her there. That colleague turns out to be the same guy she once set Shia up with on a blind date. She gets in the car with him because it's the fastest way to get there. When they arrive, she rushes out in a hurry, nearly falling. But he catches her just in time before she hits the ground. And not only that, He even takes off her high heels and puts sneakers on her so she can walk comfortably. It becomes clear that the guy is really worried about her, and it looks like a new love story is starting to bloom. She's touched by how much he cares and begins to feel drawn to him. She thanks him and then leaves. On her way out, she runs into John's uncle, and the two of them head into the hospital together. Cut to Shia, who gets into the elevator with our hero, John. She casually asks if he had fun going out with her friend yesterday. John decides it's time to tell her the truth and confess his feelings, but as always, something has to ruin the perfect moment we've all been waiting for. A bunch of people get into the elevator and interrupt their conversation. Because of the crowd, Shia ends up standing very close to John. He whispers, "Better half the problem than the whole problem," trying to lighten the mood. Shia gets flustered when she looks into his eyes and remembers all the romantic moments they've shared. She feels embarrassed and confused, trying to convince herself that she doesn't love him, that they're just friends. But John notices how shy she gets and laughs at how she reacts. She tells him to stop flirting with her because she might misunderstand. He responds, "I swear you've never misunderstood anything in your life. The problem is, you don't understand anything at all. What more can I do to prove that I love you?" Of course, that's just what he's thinking. He doesn't say it out loud. Dear viewer, in reality, he keeps it all to himself. Shia meets up with her friend, who finally arrives and apologizes for being late. She takes Shia, and they leave the hospital together. As they're walking out, the friend tries again to push Shia closer to John. She reveals that she's no longer interested in him, and even pretends that she's dating one of their co-workers. She grabs John's uncle and walks away with him to give Shia and John some time alone together. Shia is left confused by her friend's behavior and thinks, "What's up with this girl?" She ends up in the car with John, just the two of them. While they're on the road, John slips into flashback to the day they were at the military camp. They missed the last bus and had no choice but to stay together. While they were walking, John tripped and fell into a hole full of water. Shia couldn't stop laughing at how ridiculous he looked and started teasing him, but John asked her for help because he couldn't get up. She tried to act tough and said, "Shame on you, I'm the swimmer here." Then she went to get a rope to pull him out because the truth is, she can't swim either. But the rope snapped and John sank deeper into the water, almost drowning. Shia panicked and had no idea what to do. In the end, she jumped in after him to try and save him, but she ended up stuck with him in the hole instead. We called for a helper, and he needed help himself. Shia was terrified of the dark, but John tried to calm her down. He said, "You've got a lion with you. I'll protect you from any danger." Suddenly, they heard a strange sound from outside, like something was walking nearby. John got scared and instinctively hugged her from behind to hide. Shia couldn't help laughing at how innocent and childlike he was. Back to the present. John walks her home and wants to help her, but she refuses and says she can handle things on her own. She tries to go up the stairs, but stumbles and almost falls. Luckily, John catches her just in time. He picks her up on his back and carries her to her room. Once inside, he starts tidying up the place and organizing her stuff. Not only that, he decides to stay the night to keep an eye on her and make sure she's okay. He lets her rest, but she's so tired that she falls asleep on the spot. While sleeping, she dreams about him. In her dream, he gets close to her. He's about to taste the raisins, a playful metaphor here. Suddenly, she wakes up in shock and says, "Oh God, please let that be a good dream." She's confused. She doesn't understand why she keeps thinking about him like that. She tries to convince herself that it's all just because she's tired. "I'm definitely not in love with him. That's impossible. It must be because I'm sick or exhausted. Yeah, that's it." Meanwhile, Young is also thinking about her. He remembers a flashback from 3 years ago when they were still in a relationship and deeply in love. She had gone with him to attend an interview after he published his first book. Sure, she slept through the whole thing, but he was just happy she was there beside him. He kept looking at her while she slept, admiring her innocence. Back to the present. He realizes how much he misses her and wishes she'd come back to him. Later, he meets up with his friend and talks to him about her. The friend urges him, "Tell her the real reason you left. Maybe then she'll come back to you." But Young refuses and just laughs it off. The truth is, he had gotten sick and left to get treatment abroad, but he didn't want to tell her so she wouldn't worry about him. The next morning, Shia wakes up feeling a little like a princess. She's affected by how gently John treats her and happily eats her breakfast. They begin getting closer. She heads outside for a walk, but is shocked to see that Young has come to visit her. John sees them together and feels a wave of jealousy. Young asks her, "Why haven't you been answering my messages?" Shia loses her temper and says, "There's nothing between us anymore." She tells him to leave her alone and walks away back into the house. She sits on the floor, upset and overwhelmed. John follows her and gently comforts her, telling her, "I'm here for you, I'm not going anywhere." Then he finally gathers his courage, leans in closer, and this time he actually tastes the raisins, for real, not just in a dream. We're taken into a flashback from 10 years ago, back when John first saw her by chance and decided he wanted to confess his feelings to her. But just then, his mother called out to him, "Come on, sweetheart, get ready. We've decided to move to America. You're going to finish your studies there." His mom had told him, "You're not going to live out your love story? Come on." John was heartbroken by her words because it meant he had to leave Shia behind. So he took back his decision to confess his feelings and never told her how he truly felt. But Shia had seen him. She called out to him, asking him to wait for her until she crossed the road, but he refused to wait. He got on the bus and left, afraid that if he stayed, she might grow even more attached to him. Still, he kept looking back at her from the window, eyes full of sadness, back to the present. Shia is in shock from what just happened between them, the kiss. Suddenly, her phone rings and snaps her back to reality. She pushes him away, stepping back in surprise, and asks, "Why did you do that?" That's when John finally decides to confess his feelings for real. He says, "I've liked you since high school. You were my first love, and I still love you to this day. I'm sorry I waited so long to tell you. I just needed to build up the courage." Shia is so overwhelmed by his words that she can barely breathe. She stutters, trying to convince him that they're just friends, but he replies, "Too late. I'm the raisin you already tasted. And yes, I admit it, we are friends, but I want more than that." He adds, "Look, from now on, I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep trying until you admit you love me too." Then he walks away, giving her space to think about everything. But deep down, he's happy. Because at least now, he's finally taken the first real step in their relationship. Meanwhile, Shia's best friend decides it's time to forget about John too. She starts a new chapter with the co-worker who's always liked her. One day, she sees him running around and realizes she may have truly fallen for him. She waves and calls out to him, but then notices he's ignoring her, pretending not to see her. She's confused, thinking, "Why? Weren't we happy? Everything was going great." She follows him, trying to talk to him, but he's so nervous and embarrassed that he hides behind his desk, literally trying to avoid her. Meanwhile, Shia heads over to the restaurant owned by their mutual friend. She sees their mutual friend chopping onions at the restaurant and offers to help. He tells her, "This kind of work isn't for you." But she replies, "What? Do you think I'm some delicate little princess or what?" She puts on the kitchen gear and protective goggles and proudly says, "Just watch, I'm going to impress you." She starts peeling the onions like she's peeling oranges. He gets annoyed and says, "You're doing it all wrong, you're gonna ruin the batch." He notices she's acting a bit off and asks, "What's wrong? Did Prince Charming break your heart or something?" She gets flustered by his question and nervously says, "No way! Who told you that? Of course not!" But she refuses to tell him what really happened. She's afraid he'll make fun of her. Meanwhile, John is thinking about what happened between him and Shia. He's happy he finally confessed his feelings to her, and he starts to feel hopeful that maybe, just maybe, she'll fall in love with him too. He sees his uncle and takes advantage of his sudden shift in attitude by asking him to focus on getting everything ready for their return to America as soon as possible. But John just brushes him off and keeps thinking about Shia instead. He starts scrolling through her pictures and notices that she's currently at their mutual friend's restaurant. So he decides to go there. But the moment Shia hears that he's coming, she panics and quickly sneaks out before he can see her. She goes to sit alone at the bus stop, thinking about him, feeling conflicted. She's been fighting her feelings in every possible way. She keeps trying to convince herself, "We're just friends. No matter how hard you try with me, I won't shed a single tear for you, because to me, you're like a brother. And this must be the effect of the onions I peeled." She gets on the bus, acting all tough and dramatic, trying to distract herself. At the same time, John is texting her, pouring his heart out and asking her to give him a chance. He tells her his feelings are genuine. Shia finds herself torn, unsure of what decision to make. Both he and Young had left her once before, and she's afraid it might happen again. She goes home and starts doing yoga to try to calm her nerves and clear her mind. At the same time, our dear viewer can finally relax. She's letting out all the negative emotions bottled up inside. The next day, her friend comes to visit and tells her they're all going on a trip, but she finds out that John is going too. She says, "Wait, didn't I tell you I can't come? I swear my leg really hurts. I seriously can't make it." He responds, "Oh, don't lie. You literally ran out of the restaurant yesterday like you were in a sprinting competition." He keeps pestering her, even threatens jokingly, "If you don't come willingly, I'll make John come and carry you, and you know he'd love that." Shia, frustrated, finally agrees. "Fine, okay, I'll come." On the road, John seizes the opportunity and sits next to her. He keeps looking at her, trying to start a conversation. Meanwhile, their friend in the front seat is singing his heart out, throwing lyrics at them that feel suspiciously personal. There are so many things I want to tell her. I want to pour my heart out to God, to pray that we go back to how things were. I've always wished for her, and there's still a place for her in my heart. Ah, girl, if you feel it, just say yeah, or should I sing it to you too? Shia says, "Ugh, enough already," then pretends to fall asleep just to avoid replying. John just chuckles at her reaction. They arrive at a rest stop, and he tries to help her out of the car. She says, "Do I look disabled to you or what?" She storms off and heads to the restroom alone. There she stares into the mirror, talking to herself, trying to convince herself, "I don't love him. We're just friends, just friends." When she comes back, she chooses to sit next to the driver just to keep her distance from John. But her plan backfires. Luckily, or not, fate puts them together again. John says, "Since I'm driving, I suddenly got a craving for sweets. So here's the deal. You're gonna feed me, sweetie. I'm driving, remember?" Shia refuses, saying there's only one piece left. She threatens to eat it herself. John quickly pulls himself together and grabs the last piece, eats it before she can. They both start laughing and end up chatting the rest of the way, enjoying the road trip together. The tension between them starts to fade, and Shia finally begins to relax. They arrive at their destination, a peaceful, scenic spot by the water, and decide to go fishing. John seizes the opportunity to get close to her. He gently holds her hand and asks her to help him set up. Of course, her cheeks turn bright red, and she quickly pulls her hand back. Their friend steps in awkwardly and says, "All right, I'll help you fish properly." But honestly, the guy couldn't catch a single fish, not even by accident. Meanwhile, John's crushing it, like he's fishing the entire sea. It's clear who knows what they're doing. Though if the friend is teaching anything, it's how to be bad at fishing, because the most important part is patience. Later, John sees Shia walking alone by the shore. The waves are strong, and he worries she might slip or fall. So he runs to her and catches her just in time before she stumbles. She's surprised by how much he cares and thanks him warmly. They walk along the beach together. She notices some seaweed she really likes and asks if he can collect it for her. Problem is, John is allergic to seaweed. But does that stop him? Nope. He says, "I was just singing for you earlier. You think I wouldn't collect some seaweed too, please?" He gathers all her favorite kinds just to make her happy. They spend a lovely time together, laughing and bonding. Their relationship clearly starts getting stronger, and they grow closer with every moment. Suddenly, they discover a rare plant hidden under a rock. They try to pull it out together, but while doing so, they accidentally trip and fall. And now they're in one of those classic, accidentally too close moments. Of course, Shia freaks out a little and says, "What are you doing?" Her heart's racing, but she quickly covers his mouth with her hand to stop him, because she knows this guy is smooth, and he loves to flirt, especially with kisses. John laughs at her reaction, and that moment confirms it for him. She's definitely starting to fall for him. John refuses to give up and takes her back to the lodge. Once they arrive, Shia notices that her best friend isn't acting like herself. She assumes it's because of a fight with the coworker she's supposedly dating, so she takes her down to the beach to help her feel better and cheer her up. But her friend surprises her by confessing, "I lied to you. There's nothing between me and that coworker. I only said that so you wouldn't feel guilty, and so you'd let yourself get closer to John Appa. I made the biggest mistake of my life. Shia is touched by her words and says, "You're always so kind to me." "Thank you. But if that's the case, what's really bothering you then?" Her friend then opens up and explains. She actually has a crush on the coworker, but when she confessed to him and asked if they could be together, he avoided her. She asks, heartbroken, "Is there something wrong with me? Why does he keep dodging me?" Shia comforts her and says, "Don't talk like that. A guy like him should be lucky just to touch your nails. Don't give up. Try again. And then try one more time if you have to." They return to the group for dinner, and her friend, feeling a bit more confident, sings happily while they eat. She even goes and sits next to the guy she likes, starting to feel a bit more hopeful. Meanwhile, Shia notices that John saved her a seat next to him, so she chooses to sit with him this time and decides maybe she'll give him a chance too. They all take group photos together and laugh, enjoying the moment. That night, as Shia sleeps, she has a nightmare. She dreams of her mother, who left her when she was still young. Afterward, she had to go live with her aunt, but her aunt eventually left her too when she grew up and fell in love with Young. He also abandoned her and left. In her dream, she's terrified that John will do the same, that he'll also leave and go back to America. She wakes up startled, her heart racing. She gets up and goes outside for air, and just then, fate does its thing again. John brings her breakfast and returns to her with a warm smile. Shia is shocked when she sees him. She says, "I'm glad you didn't leave me." Even though she's flustered and a little shy because they're alone together, she's also genuinely happy. Then she says something she's never said before. "Please don't leave, don't go to America. I don't want to feel the pain of goodbye, especially not from someone I love." John's heart melts. He reassures her, "I'm not going anywhere. I'll stay right here by your side." She's deeply touched by his words. She lets him know she wants to be with him, but she also says she needs time to adjust. He replies, "Time? I'll wait a lifetime if I have to. Just say the word, and I'll be the happiest man alive." John is over the moon. He can't believe it. He finally got together with the girl he's loved for so long. He takes her out to celebrate. They go to a restaurant, and he orders her favorite food. He keeps staring at her, completely smitten. She blushes and says, "If you keep looking at me like that, I won't be able to eat." He grins and says, "Well, I'm the opposite. The more I look at you, the more I feel like eating and living. This is the happiest I've ever been." Days pass, and the two become inseparable, like honey and butter. They're the perfect pair. Eventually, the trip comes to an end, and they return to the city. John drops her off at her house. But our romantic hero isn't ready to say goodbye just yet. He holds her hand, wanting to keep her with him a little longer. Pure romance, folks. He's the king of soft love. But then, his uncle shows up, catches them, and says, "So this is where it ends, huh? I bring you 2 lemons and this is what I find?" Shia is embarrassed and quickly pulls away, rushing inside. "That uncle's got radar, I swear." John goes back home with his uncle, who's now extra nosy, and learns that John has resigned from his job. John decides he doesn't want to go back to America. He wants to stay and settle down in Korea. But his uncle reacts strongly, saying, "Since when? No way, that's not going to work. Your mom will never agree to this." John tries to calm him down and even splashes water on his face to get him to stop. He pleads with him, "Please don't tell her anything, at least not until I talk to her and explain everything myself." That night, John feels like he really misses Shia. He wants to call her, but debates with himself. If she's awake, I'll go see her. If she's asleep, I'll just let her rest. But surprise, she answers the phone and says, "I can't sleep." His heart jumps with excitement. "That's it, I'm coming over." But she panics. "Wait, coming where? How? I'm a mess. I'm exhausted from the trip. I'm dying to sleep." He laughs at how dramatic she is and starts flirting. "My dearest Shia, you're more beautiful than all the cows that ever grazed between 2 parentheses. Yes, dear viewer, poetry, what a romantic legend." He adds, "I'll let you sleep now before I make things worse with my sweet words." Shia is genuinely touched. His attention, his tenderness, it makes her feel like a princess. She realizes that no one has ever made her feel this cared for before, and her feelings for him grow even deeper. The next day, Shia goes to the mall with her best friend to buy a few things. While she's thinking about texting John, boom, his name pops up on her screen. He's calling her. She smiles and says, "The heart still misses, huh?" She answers and apologizes. Sorry, I can't meet today. I'm out with my friend. Then she hangs up. But John gets a little jealous. He mutters, wow, so she's had this best friend for like 10 years, and she just happens to go out with her now, right when we finally start dating? Still, he waits in front of her house for her to come back. But when John goes to meet Shia, he finds her helping his uncle, who's completely drunk and out of it. John ends up carrying him on his back and drops him off at their doorstep just so he can get back to her quickly. He looks at Shia and says, I missed you, and as long as I'm alive, I'll never let you forget me. She smiles and replies, okay, enough with the poetry. We're doing just fine without any of that. Then she says teasingly, but aren't you noticing something different? Something pretty? He looks closer and says, new hairstyle? Looks great on you. They agree to go on their first official date the next day. The next morning, they both start getting ready, dressing in their best outfits. And me, dear viewer, I'm just as excited for their big outing. But when they're about to leave the house, they discover that Shia's best friend is waiting outside. Suddenly, buzzkill. They feel a bit disappointed, but they can't say no, so they take her with them. They end up sitting in a cafe where the friend notices John and Shia holding hands. She begins to feel jealous, because she's alone, with no boyfriend, no lover, and not even a raisin to taste. Our couple jokes that the only solution to this situation is to help her find someone, so they encourage her to go visit her coworker, the guy she has a crush on. She gets shy and worried because she thinks she looks a mess. So Shia gives her one of her dresses to wear, boosting her confidence. She finally heads to meet him, looking confident and composed. When she arrives, she sees that he's with his mother. She approaches and introduces herself politely, saying, "Hi, I'm his coworker from the office." His mother warmly welcomes her, clearly pleased, and starts asking her all sorts of questions. How old are you? Are you married? No? Well, you deserve a good man like my son. Then she adds, "But from now on, please don't wear short dresses again. My son is a man who gets jealous over his wife." Her son stands there, shocked by what just happened. "You just married me off, Mom? At least give me a chance to speak." She cuts him off. "Shut up already. Don't you want to see me happy?" She looks at the girl and says, "You two will have beautiful children, God willing," and then she hails a taxi to head home. Before leaving, she turns to the girl and says, "You better have lunch with my son. You need to get to know him better." She agrees, a bit awkwardly, and the mother leaves. Now it's just the two of them. The guy is clearly irritated and embarrassed by everything his mother just said. He turns to her and apologizes. "I'm really sorry about what just happened." But she feels like she's imposing herself on him. She's crushed by the situation and feels so humiliated that she just walks away in tears. Meanwhile, we see Young visiting the school principal, asking for help to win Shia back because he still loves her. But the principal firmly refuses. "Shia went through a lot because of you. She suffered deeply, and now, for the first time, she's starting to feel happy again. Leave her alone." Back to our main couple, John and Shia, spending time together. Shia asks him, "So, what made you fall for me in the first place?" He just laughs and doesn't answer. She gets annoyed. "What, you couldn't think of a single good reason? You don't see any good in me?" She walks away, clearly upset. But John runs after her and says, "Everything about you, everything you do, I love it." He tells her that he's been in love with her since the first time he saw her. Because she's kind, genuine, and has a beautiful soul, he promises, "I'll be by your side for the rest of my life. You're my first and only love." She's deeply moved by his words. She starts falling for him even more and leans in to hug him. But of course, the romance gets interrupted. His uncle calls at that exact moment, ruining it. Seriously, worst timing ever. John has no choice but to take her home and promises, "Let's meet tomorrow. I'll make it up to you." But when Shia arrives at the company the next day, surprise! She finds out that John's mother has returned from America. She's looking for her son and asking, why did he suddenly resign from his job? Suddenly, John tells his mother that his whole life, he's always done exactly what she wanted, followed her every instruction. Then he asks her, "Just once, let me do something that I actually want." The next day, Shia's best friend goes to the school and secretly leaves a bag for her coworker, the one she has a crush on. When he opens it, he's surprised to find the sneakers she gave him earlier at the hospital. There's also a letter where she apologizes for being a burden or causing him any trouble lately. He feels guilty, realizing he was too harsh on her, and decides to apologize properly and make it up to her. He gathers his courage, memorizes what he wants to say, and confidently walks into her office. But surprise! She's sitting with a group of students, explaining something. He feels too shy to speak in front of everyone, so he just stands there staring at her while she teaches. And it's pretty clear that he's into her too, but maybe too shy to admit it. When she finishes and leaves, he follows her, but nerves get the best of him, and he forgets everything he rehearsed. She thinks he's just staring or making fun of her again, and walks off disappointed. Meanwhile, Shia goes to meet Young, and he assumes she's there to work on their joint project. But she surprises him by saying, "I'm sorry, I can't continue this project with you anymore." Suddenly, he gets dizzy and sits down on the floor. She panics and asks if he's okay. He avoids answering at first, then says, "So, you finally figured out the real reason I left you, didn't you? That this illness, it was the reason I disappeared." He asks, "Can't we get back together?" Shia is stunned by his confession and doesn't know how to respond. He hugs her and says, "I was sick. I went abroad to get treatment. I never stopped loving you. I'm so sorry. Can we go back to how things were?" Shia, emotional and moved by his honesty, gently pulls away and thanks him. "Thank you for finally telling me the truth." But then she tells him calmly, "It's over between us. I don't have feelings for you anymore because now I love someone else." Shia walks away from Young and leaves. At the same time, John is sitting with his mother, who is still insisting that he must return to America with her to stay away from Shia. But he refuses. He tells her, "Am I going to spend my whole life doing what you want? No, I'm not leaving the girl I love no matter what you do." He rushes out to meet Shia and finds her sitting alone, looking sad and talking to herself. When she sees him, she lights up and runs into his arms. She hugs him tightly and says, "I missed you." He's moved by her words and apologizes for being late. To cheer her up, he takes her on a date. They go to an arcade and she gets to ride a motorbike in one of the games, something she's never done before. Shia is thrilled and says it's the first time she's done anything like that in her life. Then they head to a fighting game, and she manages to beat him. She grabs the microphone afterward and starts singing. He laughs and says, "Wait, weren't you the one making fun of my voice?" She rolls her eyes and demands, "Okay then, you sing!" He gives in and starts singing, and to her surprise, his voice is actually beautiful. Yes, dear viewer, this man really tried his best to impress her. She stares at him in awe, feeling more and more drawn to him. At the end of the day, they walk home together, and Shia tells him, "This was the best day of my life. Thank you for being here with me." She goes inside, and for the first time, she lets go of all the memories she had of her old love, so she can start a new chapter with John. The next morning, they meet outside the house. They decide to go for a morning jog and do some exercise together. Yes, our couple is hardworking and cares about fitness too. Suddenly, a car pulls up in front of them, and John's mom steps out. She looks hurt, and although she smiles politely and greets them, John is not having it. John holds Shia's hand tightly and tells his mother that she's his girlfriend and that they're officially together. His mother is completely shocked by the news. She immediately asks to speak with him in private and tells Shia to leave them alone. Once inside the house, she informs him that she's not going back to America alone. She'll stay with him in the house until he agrees to return with her. Meanwhile, we shift to Shia's who tries to return to work, but she's totally distracted and unable to focus, just thinking about everything that's happened. Everyone around her notices that something's off. At the same time, she receives a message from John, explaining what happened between him and his mother, and asking her to stay out of sight to avoid causing more trouble. She starts panicking, wondering how she's going to handle this mess. Later that night, when she comes home, she tries not to make any noise, knowing that John's mom is staying next door. But suddenly, bam! John grabs her hand from behind and takes her up to the rooftop to talk. He pulls her into a tight hug, saying, "I missed you, and I promise, I won't stop trying with my mom. I'm not letting her leave until she gives up and goes back to the US without me. I'm staying here, with you." The next day, John skips work and heads to their friend's restaurant. But surprise, his old rival Wagner is working there now. They all start teasing John and ask him to bring them food. He agrees and starts helping out at the restaurant. He even serves the food himself, which surprisingly helps him make good money. Wagner notices and offers him a deal. "Come work with me every day. I'll bring you more customers." That night, Shia comes home from work and is shocked to see Young waiting outside her house. She approaches him and asks, "What are you doing here?" Young is clearly emotional and still heartbroken about their breakup. He says he can't move on and doesn't know how to get over her. But she tells him firmly, "You will, with time. You'll forget me eventually." Then she adds, "I've been through the same pain you're going through right now. You'll have to taste the same bitterness, because there's nothing left between us anymore. Not even if you were sick." She says to him, "You should have told me back then. Let me decide. Should I wait for you, or should we go our separate ways?" While they're talking, Shia's mom happens to return home and sees them together. She misunderstands and thinks something is still going on between Shia and Young. After Young leaves, the mother confronts her and says, "So, that's what's going on? You're playing both sides, breaking up with my son just to go back to your ex?" But Shia tells her calmly, "John is the one who never gave up. He kept chasing me and proved how much he loved me." The mother explodes with anger and tries to scare her off. She says, "I'm worried about you. My son is no good. He's reckless, a total flirt, not serious about anything. Stay away from him. It's for your own good." But Shia doesn't believe a word of it. She knows John better. So she walks away, leaving the mother speechless. Later that evening, John comes back and finds her sitting alone on the rooftop. He tries to talk to her, but she's upset. She tells him she's angry because he hid his past relationships in America. She then lists the names of all the girls that his mother mentioned. John explains that it was the girls who chased after him, and he rejected every one of them. He takes her hand and begs her to trust him, but she's scared. She's afraid he'll end up leaving her and going back to America just like before. She pulls her hand away, runs inside, and starts crying. The next day, Shia goes to school to meet her best friend. But there, she sees two teenage students jumping over the wall. It reminds her of herself when she was that age, of how she and John once did the same thing. She remembers how he followed her, never leaving her side, how he stayed with her through it all, even when she pushed him away. She realizes her feelings for him are real, and so are his, and she regrets doubting him. Her best friend sees her looking sad and guesses right away that they had a fight, so she takes her out to eat, knowing food always cheers her up. Yes, she knows her weak spots. Meanwhile, John is at the restaurant with his buddy who shows him an old photo of himself from when he was in the army. Among the photos John sees, one is of Shia during her military visit. He notices she looks sad and isn't smiling, which surprises him because that's not like her at all. He asks his friend about it, and the friend explains, "She was really depressed at that time. Her boyfriend left and traveled away. She used to have nightmares for months." John is deeply affected by this. He realizes she's afraid he might leave her too, just like her ex. He feels even more compassion for her and becomes determined to reassure her. Later, Shia's best friend returns to school, and as she's walking past the sports field suddenly, a ball comes flying toward her. But just before it hits her, the guy who likes her sees it coming and runs over, throwing himself in front of her, taking the hit right in the face. She's shocked and touched by what he did. She takes him to the school clinic to get checked. While they're alone, she thanks him for always being there for me. Then she asks, "But why do you always avoid me?" He gets flustered, but finally gathers his courage and confesses everything. He says, "I've liked you since the first moment I saw you, but you never noticed me. You even tried to set me up with your best friend." Then with all his courage, he adds, "I still love you." She smiles, touched, and tells him, "I love you too." They hug, and even St. Lou himself would have been proud. That night, John's mother returns home and finds him sitting on the rooftop, waiting for Shia to come back. She sits down beside him and asks, "Do you really love her that much?" He nods and tells her she's been the love of my life since high school, and I'm not losing her again. Then he leaves to go meet Shia. At that same moment, Shia is thinking about him too. As soon as work finishes, she dashes out of the company, running to go see him. But as she crosses the road, She doesn't look both ways and almost gets hit by a car. Thankfully, John shows up just in time and pulls her to safety. Shia is overwhelmed by what just happened. She can't believe he's standing in front of her. She thinks she might be imagining it, but John hugs her tightly to reassure her. He apologizes for upsetting her and promises he won't do anything to hurt her again. She also apologizes and tells him she trusts him completely. They make up, and once again, everything between them goes back to being sweet and romantic, just like honey and butter. They walk together all the way to her house, and she asks him to go home because she's worried about him catching a cold, but he refuses. He insists on staying, saying that he missed her too much. So she finally gives in and lets him in to cook for him herself. But she's obviously nervous. Every time he gets close, she flinches and backs away. John keeps laughing at her reactions and eventually sits down politely, acting like a proper gentleman, as he proudly says, "Because I was raised right." Let's just hope that's true. They eat together, enjoying the moment, until she suddenly trips and falls on top of him. "Finally, I told you I raised this boy right. She's the one who fell, not him." She gets super embarrassed, but he quickly says, "I swear I didn't do anything. I was just sitting there. You fell on me." They both burst out laughing, and the awkward tension between them fades. Then he opens up to her about his mother. He explains that she doesn't like Korea because, unfortunately, she loved his father deeply, and he passed away here in Korea. So, out of grief, she left the country and never wanted to come back. They stay up late, and John ends up spending the night at her place. The next morning, they wake up early and try to sneak out quietly so that John's mother doesn't find out. But, surprise, she's already waiting for them on the stairs, arms crossed. She sees him leaving Shia's apartment, and both of them freeze, afraid of what she'll say. But she just looks at them, then turns around and walks away without saying a word. Shia gets worried and follows her since they're both headed in the same direction for work. Shia tries to talk to John's mom, and the mother is surprised by her boldness. It's clear she's beginning to like her, but of course she doesn't show it because, well, mothers-in-law, you know how they are. Later, Shia's best friend notices that her crush is acting cold toward her in public. She's upset and confronts him. "What's wrong with you? Didn't we agree we're together? Come here, sweetie, I need to explain something. We're not doing anything wrong. You love me, I love you. Love is not a crime." He's impressed by her honesty, takes her hand, and promises to stop hiding it. But the moment some guys pass by, he immediately drops her hand. Coward. I told you, dear viewer, he's still not learning. He's a classic good boy. That night, John stays over at Shia's place again. He doesn't want to face his mom. He falls asleep quickly, and Shia just stares at him, butterflies fluttering in her heart. She remembers back in high school when she saw him playing for the school team. She admired his skills, yes, his football skills, viewer, don't judge me. She started following him quietly to see more of those skills until they ran into each other by chance in the library. That's how it all began. Back to the present. Shia still can't believe they're together now. She reaches out and touches his face to make sure he's real. Suddenly, he opens his eyes. He's awake. They both laugh and joke all night long. That's life, my friend. This is it. The next day, Shia wakes up feeling happy and playful. But suddenly, the doorbell rings. She thinks it's John, but to her surprise, it's his mother. She welcomes her awkwardly, offers her something to eat. But the fridge is empty. She's mortified. Then John's mother hands her an envelope and says, "Open it." Shia does, and she's stunned. John's mother is giving them her blessing to get married on one condition, that Shia goes with John to America. She even gives her a credit card and tells her to buy whatever she needs. Shia is shocked and asks why she trusts her so quickly. John's mother replies, "I trust John's choice. He loves you. So if you love him too, don't stand in the way of his future." Shia is torn. She goes for a walk to think and runs into her best friend's dad. She tells him everything and asks for advice. He gently tells her, "You're still young. Do what feels right to you. Do the thing that'll make you truly happy." She thanks him and heads home, still unsure. Meanwhile, her best friend is mad. Her boyfriend's hiding their relationship in public again. Frustrated, she storms off and accidentally loses her shoe. He sees her struggling and comes over, kneels down, and puts the shoe on for her. Then, like a king, he grabs her hand in front of the teachers and principal. "Everyone, this is the girl I love, and I'm going to marry her. I'll prove it." And he literally picks her up and runs to the marriage office. No time for drama. This guy's playing for keeps. Back to John. He searches everywhere for Shia until he finds her, at their old school. They walk together. She starts crying, tells him she loves him, but she can't go to America until she achieves her dream. He's moved by her words. He wipes her tears and hugs her tight. He understands. I'll go and finish my work, then come back for you. In the meantime, follow your dream. And when I return, let's get married. She's overjoyed. They go on one final date before he leaves. They visit the same restaurant where they first met, eat together, then go home and buy a Christmas tree. They take pictures beside it to remember this day forever. They watch a romantic movie and fall asleep together on the couch. The next day, John prepares to leave. He's acting all goofy and cheerful, but deep down, he's sad. His best friend gives him a big hug, saying he'll miss him so much. At the airport, John waits for his flight, and suddenly, Shia shows up. She's holding a suitcase. I took a leave from work. I decided to come with you. I can achieve my dream in America, too. He's speechless, overwhelmed with joy. They board the flight together, and once they're seated, he gives her a raisin. Yes, the famous raisin moment again. As the plane takes off, they both smile, thinking back to how they met in high school, how far they've come, and the beautiful moments they've shared. They finally decide, let's get married and spend our lives together. And so, dear viewer, their love story ends with happiness, travel, laughter, and a whole lot of raisins. The end. Don't forget to subscribe for more. Check out more recaps you'll absolutely love right here.